So today we're diving into the life of Jetsun Milarepa. And let me tell you, his story is one of the most incredible, most intense tales you'll ever hear. He's this huge figure in Tibetan history, but his life, it's a wild ride from profound darkness to, believe it or not, even greater light.
So let's kick things off with a big question, one that really gets to the heart of his entire story. Think about it for a second. Can a person's worst acts define their whole life? Are we just the sum of our biggest mistakes? Or is there always a way back, a path to redemption, no matter how far we've fallen? I want you to keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through this.
And here's why that question is so important. Look at this contrast. On one hand, you have Milarepa, the Tibetan saint, one of the most beloved poets and mystics ever. But on the other hand, a mass murderer. And we're talking about the same guy. He was both. So the question is, how on earth does that happen? How do you go from one to the other?
All right, let's get into it. His story doesn't start with peace and meditation. Nope. It starts with betrayal, injustice, and a burning, all-consuming need for revenge. This is where his life takes a very, very dark turn. So, picture this. Milarepa starts out with a pretty cushy life. He's born into a super prosperous family in western Tibet, has everything he could want. But then, tragedy strikes. His father dies when he's just a kid. And that's when everything falls apart. His own aunt and uncle, who were supposed to take care of them, get greedy. They steal everything, the land, the wealth, the whole shebang, and throw Milarepa and his mom out, basically turning them into servants.
You can just imagine the bitterness building up over the years. And his mother, she was consumed by it. She begs him, she pleads with him to go learn sorcery and make their relatives pay for what they did. So it's really important to get this. His journey into black magic wasn't just his own idea. It was born out of his mother's desperation and her thirst for revenge.
And yeah, he followed through. He went off, he studied sorcery, and he got his revenge. But it's one of those be careful what you wish for situations. That victory, it tasted like ash. The weight of what he did would come crashing down on him. And that's when the real story begins.
So Milarepa learns these dark arts, and he becomes terrifyingly good at them. He comes back, and during a wedding feast for the very people who wronged him, he conjures this massive storm. The house collapses, and he kills 35 of them, just like that. His revenge wasn't just successful, it was devastating.
But that feeling of triumph, it lasted for maybe a minute. Then came the horror, the crushing guilt, the sheer weight of taking all those lives just flattened him. And this quote, this is the pivot point for his entire existence. That profound sorrow becomes the fuel for a totally new journey, one that would be way, way harder than learning sorcery.
This really lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? It's like two completely different people in one lifetime. You've got the sorcerer, motivated by revenge, creating nothing but death and suffering, racking up all this negative karma. And then you have the path he's about to choose, the yogi, motivated by pure atonement, aiming for enlightenment, and trying to purify all that terrible karma. Okay, so Milarepa is desperate. He knows he's done something unforgivable, and he has to find a way to make it right. He needs a real teacher. So he seeks out this famous master, Marpa the translator. But if Milarepa thought this was going to be some gentle, welcoming process, he was in for a rude awakening. So he finds Marpa, and what happens? Marpa basically spits on him. There's no welcome mat, no spiritual guidance. Instead, Marpa treats him like dirt. He refuses to teach him anything. For years, all Milarepa gets is abuse, hostility, and impossible, back-breaking work.
And the most famous of these tests is just insane. Marpa tells him, go build me a tower. So Milarepa, all by himself, builds this huge stone tower. He gets to the very top, and Marpa comes by and says, you know what? I don't like it here. Tear it down, every last stone, and build it over there. And he makes him do this 3 separate times. Can you even imagine the despair? Finally, he builds a 4th one, a 9-story monster that, crazily enough, is still standing today.
So you're probably thinking, what is this guy's deal? Is he just a sadist? But there was a method to the madness. Marpa finally explained it. All that suffering, every single painful moment, was a form of purification. It was a brutal, intense spiritual boot camp designed to help Milarepa literally work through the consequences of all the lives he had taken. It was his penance. After all that, after proving he would do literally anything to atone, Marpa finally broke down and accepted him. Milarepa had paid his dues. And now, the real training, the real transformation, could finally begin.
And when Marpa finally decided to teach, he didn't hold back.
He gave Milarepa the keys to the kingdom. We're talking about the most advanced, secret teachings, things like Tumo, which is this incredible practice of generating yoga ki, and Mahamudra, which is all about directly experiencing the true nature of your own mind. This was the real deal.
So now Milarepa has the tools, and Marpa's final instruction is simple. Go, be alone, and practice. So that's what he did. For years on end, he just disappeared into the caves of the Himalayas, meditating in complete solitude, facing extreme cold, starvation, just him and the teachings, putting everything he learned to the ultimate test.
So what was the point of all this? The end game was enlightenment. And what is that, really? It's not just, having a nice thought. It's a profound, direct experience of reality as it truly is. It's like the veil is lifted, and for the first time, you see everything with total clarity, without any of the usual confusion or mental junk. It's a complete rewiring of your perception. And incredibly, he did it. He got there. And this is the heart of his story. This is why he's so revered. His life becomes the ultimate example that even a mass murderer can become a fully enlightened Buddha. It's this radical idea that no one is beyond saving. No act is so terrible that transformation is impossible. But achieving enlightenment wasn't the end of the story. He didn't just sit in a cave forever. The final part of his life was all about sharing what he'd learned, sharing the wisdom that he had paid for so dearly.
And here's the ultimate proof of his transformation. Years later, he runs into his aunt, the one who started this whole mess. The old Milarepa would have been filled with rage, but the new Milarepa? He just felt compassion. He completely forgave her. The cycle of vengeance was finally, truly broken.
All right, so I'm going to throw a number at you. 100,000. What do you think that could be?
It's the number of songs he wrote. That's how he taught. He didn't give dry lectures. He would just burst into these spontaneous poems and songs that perfectly captured his spiritual insights. They were teachings about the nature of reality, the struggles on the path, the bliss of freedom, all wrapped in beautiful poetry. And this collection is known as the 100,000 Songs of Milarepa, and it's an absolute classic.
So his impact is just massive. He's not just some legendary poet. He's a key figure in Tibetan Buddhism, specifically the Kagyu school. His main student, a guy named Gampopa, took his teachings and founded lineages that are still alive and thriving today. He really shaped the course of Tibetan spiritual history.
And so that brings us right back to that question we started with. Milarepa's story is one of the most extreme tales of redemption you'll ever find. It really forces you to ask yourself, if a murderer can truly become a Buddha, then what are we to say about the limits of our own transformation? What are we really capable of changing in ourselves?